And you'll notice that it's actually very reminiscent of the birth story for Moses. You know, how Pharaoh orders all the newborn baby boys to be thrown in the river. Moses found in the bulrushes. Very similar to that. And so, if you ever preach a sermon on the birth of Jesus, is a good story. Or both the birth of Moses. So, this is the way it goes. Once upon a time, there was a village along the banks of a river. One day, a villager was at the river, and he noticed what appeared to be a baby floating in the water. So quickly he jumps into the river, he swims to the baby and brings it to shore, saves the baby. The next day he comes back, and this time he sees two babies floating down the river. So he calls a friend, they jump in, they both bring the babies to shore, save the babies. The next day he comes back, and there are 4 babies floating down the river. And so they grab some other people from the village, they jump in, save the babies. The next day, there's 8 babies floating down the river. The next day, there's 16 babies. Soon, they've got a team of trained swimmers jumping into the water, trying to, save all the babies. They've got like a big conveyor, like line of people passing the babies from one to another on the shore. But eventually, there are so many babies coming down the river that they just can't save them all. And they even have the village priest come and bless what they're doing. But eventually, they just can't handle all the numbers of babies coming down the river. And so a woman in the crowd raises the question, but where are all these babies coming from? And then she says, we need to organize a team of people to head upstream and find out who's throwing these babies into the river in the first place. Now this story is a metaphor for why social action is needed. So to bring it to an example that might be in your communities, you've got people, in my church I know we've got people braving the waters to address problems like homelessness. They're jumping into the river, they're involved in soup kitchens, we're involved in an overnight shelter. That's the kind of work of saving the babies that are floating down the river. Right? It's the immediate needs we're trying to meet in whatever way we can. But we realize that really it's too much for us to solve the problem just by doing the soup kitchen, just by doing the overnights at the shelter. And so at some point we have to realize that we have to head upriver to address the root causes of homelessness. Right? If we really want to make a difference in addressing homelessness, we have to head upriver. Right? We need a kind of a search team to go up there. So my point isn't to say that going upriver is any better, than the people who are in the water doing the really needed work. Both forms of work need to be blessed, and both are needed. So, but I found, in the 3 churches I've been at in Berkeley, Boston, and now in Vancouver, that if I just say, let's do social action instead of charity and some of the things you were mentioning, instead of education, instead of soup kitchens, instead of serving others in the kind of community service fashion, we'll get around to say, well, what should we do for social action? And somebody will say, let's give money for orphans in Rwanda, or they'll say, let's hold an educational session on homelessness in Vancouver. Those are all great things, and we should all do those and continue doing them, but it's just different than social action, right? And so social action is people coming together to really act and address root causes, and really looking at the policy level of why things are the way things are. So now I want to do a little exercise here based on this story. I want you to find a